another edition of South Suburban Spotlight on BCTV. I'm Sam Ekstrom. Great episode coming today with a special emphasis on the boys teams. We've got two new coaches coming in, Rob Mestas and Steve Bolio of the basketball and hockey teams. But first, the Burnsville Football quarterback, Sam Bardwell. Sam, great name by the way. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Kind of tired after school, but I'm excited for this nice break ahead.
Yeah, you're going right from football to basketball. Not much rest for the weary. I know you got some bruises from the football season. So how do you get your mind in the right place now to make that jump to the next sport?
Definitely catch up on sleep, and then I know we'll start captain's basketball practices to get back into the basketball mode.
Did you hear about that football comeback in the playoffs last week with Edina and St. Michael Albertville and the 29-point comeback?
I did, actually. I was at a Young Life camp too when I heard it, so it was like really surprising because there's some people from Edina there.
Ouch. You ever been a part of anything like that?
A comeback?
Yeah.
In tennis, you can come back pretty easily. And I know we were down like one set, and me and my brother even came back from two. So we've had a couple of those.
Not bad. All right, so let's go back a couple steps to last summer, last fall. You got coaxed into being the quarterback of this football team. You had not played football in 7 years, I think I was told. So how did that happen? How did it come together to where you got talked into this?
It was really a lot of pressure from friends and coaches. I know Varp he didn't even know me, but he was still telling me to come out. But also mainly my friends, they were always like, you've got to come out and try it. Like, just imagine like how good we would be with you and stuff. And I was like, senior year, I don't want to regret anything, so I decided to play.
So how did they know, and how did you know that you would be good at this if you hadn't done it in so long?
Because I know at like halftime at soccer games, I'd always go out there with friends and just throw a football around, and everyone's like, you could throw it so far, why don't you try out for quarterback? I was like, all right, let's see how it goes. So
what was the toughest part then, translating it from halftime of the soccer game onto the actual field? What was the biggest difficulty? Definitely
learning, like, memorizing the plays wasn't too bad, but it's understanding what the defense is giving you and where your receivers are going to be, and knowing when to hit them and like how hard to throw it, where to throw it. That was the most difficult part for sure. Did you feel like you settled in as the season went along and got even more comfortable there down the stretch? Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I understood the different zones of the defense and the different pockets.
Yeah. How did it feel to get hit for the first time?
I got hit hard the first game. I was expecting it. You know, I don't play super physical sports, so it was actually kind of fun, not going to lie. So.
Well, you got thrown into it against Lakeville North and the Most starts. I mean, that wasn't easy.
No, I remember one hit very clearly. I got like whiplash.
Well, you battled through a lot this year. You pink eye, you mentioned that you played through in the playoffs. A gritty year for you, I would say. So you had a great running game and you had a great defense. I mean, those had to be your two best friends this year, right?
Our defense for sure. They definitely helped me settle in and feel more comfortable that I wouldn't panic as much, that like the offense has to be good this game. I know our defense always had our back.
What was your favorite win this year? Because you had some really nice ones.
For sure, Minnetonka.
Oh, so good. How many times have you watched that game-winning touchdown pass?
Multiple. I've sent it out to like a ton of family members as well, so they've all seen it.
Tough loss in the playoffs. We'll get that kind of under the rug here. But for a lot of seniors, it's their last football game, right? Mm-hmm. And they've been playing maybe for 12 years or however long. For you, you were a little bit one and done, right? You came back, you played 1 year. So did you feel like the emotions of ending the season were the same for you as they were for players who've been playing for a long time?
I know there's definitely a little difference, but I know I worked like really hard all season, so I felt it too. Like I was crying and so was everyone else, and it almost made me cry to just see how much like everyone cared about this sport and that I finally got to be a part of it.
All right, give me a few words about a few of your teammates. Marcus Shepley.
He's can do anything. Energetic.
Darian Claiborne.
A tank.
Kai Dixon.
Gentle giant.
Tommy Tester.
Athletic.
Markel Brooks.
Smooth.
He is smooth, isn't he?
His cuts.
A little bit more with Sam Bardwell right after this on South Suburban Spotlight. Back on South Suburban Spotlight, Sam and Sam. It's a sandwich here on South Suburban Spotlight. We're going to put you through the speed round. Sam, have you ever heard of the speed round? People sweat, people, basically crumble when they're faced with it. We're just going to ask you a lot of quick questions, give your reaction to them, sort of like a get to know.
Great.
You've done that before. I know you loved every second of it. So if you could go pro in any of your three sports, football, basketball, tennis, which one would it be?
Can I choose a different sport?
Sure, why not?
Golf, for sure. I like golfing on the side.
Okay. Who's your favorite golfer?
Phil Mickelson.
Nice. Are you a lefty?
No, my brother is though.
Nice. I'm a lefty. Lefty's the best. Favorite lunch here at Burnsville High School?
Chicken patty, spicy.
It's a favorite card game to play?
Poker.
Yeah, Texas Hold'em?
Yep.
How many fantasy teams do you have?
I don't play fantasy.
You don't
football.
play fantasy?
No.
And other fantasy sports?
No.
What kind of car do you drive?
Ford F-150.
Last show that you binged?
I don't really watch TV either.
You don't have fantasy teams, you don't watch TV. What do you do in your spare time?
Homework, sports.
Okay, you get one free purchase of $20,000 or more. What's it going to be?
Huge trip vacation to Europe. But also, I'd like to see Australia, New Zealand. I've heard great things. Or I know it's not a country, but Alaska.
All right, you're off the hot seat for the speed round. Well done. I think you got through it pretty well. So why don't you take us through what you've got coming up with your senior year? Obviously, basketball season, tennis season, and then college after that. What are you thinking of studying and going into?
I'm thinking the major is so far engineering, specifically maybe medical engineering.
And I know you're looking into some Big Ten schools. Do you like those large campus vibes?
Yes, I'm a very social person, so I would love to see like Big Ten sports games, football games, and be a part of that. If
you're judging based on strength of football team, you might not go to Minnesota, but we can't fault you for that.
Maybe not.
Hey, no offense to PJ Fleck. PJ, this guy's great. We still love him. Sam, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
He's Sam Bardwell. I'm Sam Ekstrom. We've got his basketball coach, Rob Mestas, on the set next. Back on South Suburban Spotlight with Rob Mestas, the first-year Burnsville boys basketball coach. So when you come into a new program, what's the first thing that you do to get acclimated? What's the first thing that you do to sort of put your footprint on the team?
I think first of all, for me, at least that's how I did it, because I was at Roosevelt, so I was only at one place prior to here. So for me coming here, the first thing I wanted to do was just meet the players and kind of learn how they played, right? So I had an opportunity to coach them in the summer. I declined to coach them so I could actually sit back and just watch. Coming in as a new guy, you don't want to come in and be too hard on a guy, but you don't want to come in and be too lenient. And so for me, it was like, my best opportunity to learn these kids is to really sit back and just watch. And I think we've gotten to a point now where I've got an idea of what the culture is like. I have an idea of kind of how our players approach basketball and what their commitment is. And so for me, that was the best thing for me to do coming in here at Burnsville, and that's what I did.
Well, we're going to talk more about Burnsville basketball in a little bit, but I want to talk a bit about you and maybe flatter you a little bit, because you've had some great accomplishments in your career. Mr. Basketball, Miami of Ohio, CBA career. What do you look back on? What are you most proud of from what you accomplished on the court?
For me, I think graduating from college was the first thing because even though it wasn't on the court, it was because of basketball. Now looking back, it's easy to say you don't need basketball to go to college, but growing up where I came from, that's what we thought. And so to be able to use basketball as a tool to get an education, to further my opportunity for the rest of my life, to make sure that my kids are taken care of, to me, that's the biggest impact that basketball's had on me. So, basketball has been great to me. I love it. I tell people I work. I work here at the school, and I work so I can coach basketball. I grocery shop. I take care of my kids. I make sure everything is taken care of, so I have the opportunity to coach basketball. So everything that I do is so to give me the opportunity to be able to actually coach.
And who are some of your biggest coaching influences that you've encountered in your career?
A bunch, man. Craig LeSueur, he was an educator and teacher and coach in the Minneapolis City Conference. Frank Hinch was my high school coach. Clyde Turner, former Golden Gopher, he has his own basketball camp. He has a camp that back in the day, he would take a group of inner city kids at no charge for a week to Annandale, Minnesota, Camp Cairo. And he would let us just play basketball. We would go to class in the morning and play basketball, the rest of the day, and it was outside. I mean, you had to be a hooper is what we call them.
So I came across an article in my research, and I want to read you what I found. Known for his menacing defensive play, Mestas regularly drew the assignment of guarding the opposition's top backcourt player. That's an article from 2000 about your work at Miami of Ohio. So what was it about your defense that they described as menacing? What made you such a strong defender?
It kind of goes back to the earlier question, who influenced me. Mm-hmm. Craig LeSueur was a guy who was probably at the time in his 30s, and he was in such great shape. And I used to ask him, how are you this old? You old man, I'm 15, so you're an old man at 30. How are you in such good shape? And he was like, because I put so much effort into what I do on the basketball court, but specifically defense. For me, I knew that I can count on getting 6 to 8 points a game off of my defense. So in high school, it was more of an opportunity to make me a better scorer, right, to improve my stats. When I went to college, my role changed tremendously. I went from averaging 25 points a game to not averaging double digits until I was a senior. And so for me to stay on the court, right, my role was to figure out what I can be the best at. And for me, it was defense. And I knew I was quick enough. It was something that I took pride in. So to be able to guard a guy full court and really change the impact what that player has on a game, especially the other team's point guard, primary ball handler, it really changed the game without having to score.
You played defense, you passed it really well, and you rarely took breaks. You played like 40 minutes a game, it seemed like, in college. So is that the kind of selfless play that you're going to preach to these Burnsville kids, that, hey, it's not always about scoring?
Yep. So we had our parent-player meeting last night, and one of the things I said to them is like, look, there's certain players that are scorers, there's certain players who are defenders, certain players who are rebounders. Everybody can't be a scorer. But the one thing that I will do is I will point out to you what your role is. There are going to be guys who are on our team that can shoot threes whenever they're open. Then there are guys who are on the team who I'm going to tell, if you shoot a three, even if you're wide open, make or miss, I'm taking you out the game. And I'm going to be brutally honest with them, because in order for us to function as a team, we have to be, cohesive. We have to understand our role. And so very important. Absolutely.
All right, give me your best Wally Szczerbiak memory.
Man, well, I'd have to go back to in 1999. We made it to the Sweet 16 in the NCAA tournament, and the first round game we were a 10 seed. We were playing a 7 seed Washington. They had a big 7-footer. Can't think of his name, but Wally, I think we scored 50. Wally had.
You had 43 of your 59.
He had 43 of our 59, and he just went nuts. And the rest of our team, he had never done that before. We had NBA or professional players across the board, but he was so hot. And the thing about him is he was getting a lot of credit by that time. He was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. He was doing a lot of things, but he was a selfless guy, and I respected that about him. And guys didn't have problems or issues letting him get those shots because they knew that he was one of us. He wasn't a guy that was taking shots and that's all he was doing. He was working hard on the defensive end and doing those other things. Otherwise, as a captain, I wouldn't have allowed him to take all those shots. Regardless, he's my teammate. So yeah, that was probably the best moment. I mean, he showed me that he was NBA ready.
So at the same time you're making that run with Miami of Ohio, you've got Khalid El-Amin, another Minnesota product, making a run with Connecticut, and now you know, fate has brought you two back together here in Burnsville on this staff. Can you talk about your relationship with him?
You know, Khalid and I, you know, we both grew up in the inner city. I talked about the Clyde Turner camp earlier. That's where we met. So I was probably in 4th grade and he was probably in 2nd. And he's 2 years younger than me, and we would go and, you know, both of us would always fight to get and play with the older guys. And so, but before we could do that, we had to battle. And in my mind, you know, I was so much older, 2 years older, and in my mind quicker than these guys, and this kid never backed down. But Khalid Al-Amin would never be intimidated. You know, I would always have, even though he was 2 years younger, I knew when I was playing him, I had a battle on my hand, and we just had that mutual respect. And I've always asked him to coach with me. I would call him, and he was always either playing overseas or when he did come back, he was at North. So when I was at Roosevelt, I called him like, hey, Khalid, you know, come on, I need you. And he's like, man, I'm already committed to North. And you got to understand that, you know, that's the one place that, you know, has a special, special place in his heart. Mm-hmm. Coming over here, I was able to offer him an opportunity to be my varsity assistant so he wouldn't have to coach JV or anything. He could come in. I'm going to give him leeway to do some timeouts and to scout and, you know, to do certain things without having to ask me because I trust him that much. You know, our kids are so young, you know, they don't even know who, you know, I'm like, we have Khalid Al-Amin in the staff, and they're like, who is that? So, you know, their homework, I'm like, go look him up and then come and see me tomorrow. So Julian Hutchinson did it, and he came back and was excited. So.
Yeah, he's got some nice YouTube highlights.
Yeah, for sure.
I would say. We got some more questions for you, Coach, right after this break on South Suburban Spotlight. Second segment with Rob Mestas, the new Burnsville boys basketball coach. Let's talk a little bit more about this Blaze team. What did you do to get familiar with the players and the roster and what they did last season? How did you immerse yourself in this club?
So I was lucky. When I got hired, the school year was just about to end, and they had already set up their summer camps. And so what I was able to do is I was able to have summer camp Monday through Thursday, all the way through the month of June, and then a week in July as well, or actually 2 weeks in July. So I had 6 weeks to actually evaluate these players. So what I came in and did is, you know, I tried to put the best competition drills, skill drills together to kind of get an idea of what these players have done. I was able to get the access to the huddle that they had last year, watch some games, and I was blown away with the opportunity that we have in front of us. I know the record last year, they won 5 games, but the reality is they lost a bunch of games by 1, 2, and 3 points. So after you take those games out, they could have been several games over 500 just off of those games. You don't see that, you know, and I know almost doesn't cut it, but for a new guy coming in and realizing that the majority of the guys who were on that team last year are coming back, plus all the young guys that I've seen in this summer, you know, it's a great opportunity of experience.
I know you've got a nice crop of seniors on this team, and I'm guessing some of them will be named captains. What do you expect from that leadership group?
Leadership is about your play on the court, but it's also about vocally what you do, right? Are you supporting your players? If you get taken out of a game after being frustrated, are you dropping your head or pouting to the bench? You know, those are the things that I'm looking for in our leaders to make sure that they're doing the right thing. Also, on top of that, I want our leaders to be excellent in the classroom. You know, I was lucky at Roosevelt that 2 out of the last 3 years, we were academic all-state in a conference, Minneapolis City Conference, where we're not known for academics necessarily, but because our leaders made sure that they were at study tables, that the younger guys, you know, we're doing the right things in the hallways. And those are the things that I'm looking for in our leaders.
Well, I know I speak on a lot of people's behalves when I say we're really excited to see what happens with you at the helm, and hopefully you can get this team back to a state tournament. So
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. I really do. And I'm excited to have the fans coming back. You know, I'm looking forward to getting students coming and teachers coming and the community involved. So I'm really excited.
Big thanks to Rob Mestas. We have Steve Bolio coming up from the boys hockey team. But first, it's Bree Meier with our Spotlight Special.
High energy, fast-paced, exciting. That's Minnesota girls volleyball.
Volleyball is the most popular sport for girls in Minnesota, second in the nation.
This popularity led former player and Hall of Fame coach Walt Weaver to ask one important question.
Why is it that in Minnesota, volleyball is such a big deal, and yet there's no boys playing?
Partnering with Gophers head volleyball coach Hugh McCutcheon, Weaver set out to create a boys' high school volleyball league. South Metro clubs from Lakeville and Shakopee paved the way for the boys' league that eventually saw 22 teams in its inaugural season.
It went from an idea that Hugh and I came up with very quickly to something that had legs.
Heading into year 2, numbers have grown, and the Boys Volleyball League is now vying for official status.
It's just an amazing thing that it's in the high schools now, and being able to hopefully get it a sanctioned sport in the high schools eventually would be just outstanding for the sport of volleyball in general.
The process of getting a sport sanctioned, however, is not a simple one.
So the Minnesota State High School League is made up of all the schools in the state. And so you've got to get those schools to buy into it.
While the process may take time, the concept is straightforward. Schools buy in when students express interest.
Everyone was shocked at the level of interest last spring.
One of those interested players is Wayzata High School senior Luke Nelson.
This is my favorite sport, and kind of like right now, it's kind of my life.
Growing up in a volleyball family, Luke was always around the game. Hoping to play college volleyball, Luke relishes the opportunity to play even more, with the added bonus of representing his high school.
It's super exciting for me because maybe I could get to play at my school and play with some friends of mine, get them into the sport.
Boys volleyball becoming an MSHSL sanctioned sport is in its early stages.
It'll take time, everything takes time, but I think eventually it'll be a sanctioned sport.
But until then, high school club teams are growing at a rapid rate, and more boys are joining in on the fun.
I've never in my life seen somebody that I've said, hey, why don't you just come and try this, that it hasn't become something that they really want to do.
For more information on how you can start a team in your high school, visit mnboyshighschoolvolleyball.com.
You have to come at least try it out. It's such a fun sport.
For BCTV, I'm Bree Meier.
Our next guest on South Suburban Spotlight, Steve Bolio, the Burnsville boys hockey team. Coach, you are very familiar with Burnsville. You graduated from here 20 years ago. So let's take a trip down memory lane. What was it like around here in 1998?
You know, what I remember is just, I think, a lot of baggy college sweatshirts and flannels and, you know, a lot of good energy. I think Sparky may have been born right around then, so, you know, it was a fun time.
Well, you have taken the reins of the hockey program. You played in the hockey program, so you know a lot about this team. You know a lot of the players. Does it feel like a fairly seamless integration for you to sort of take over here?
It really does. I think that's an advantage I have going in. I know most of the guys from coaching them in youth and made some connections with the parents, so you know, it definitely makes it a lot easier of a transition.
So what are the differences between interacting with your team as an assistant and interacting with your team as a head coach? Because I imagine that you have to put yourself in a different place of authority there.
That's right. It's both are fun. I'd say as an assistant, you're a little more casual, maybe a little more approachable at times for the guys. But I mean, as a head coach, I wouldn't say it's a huge transition. I mean, I'm still pretty energetic, positive coach, I think. So, you know, it won't be too different, but you know, it definitely won't be exactly the same.
Well, you know these players so well from Bantam and just being in this program. So, how do you start building relationships, I guess, with those guys?
I think just having conversations with each kid and sitting down and engaging them and in practice, you know, if they're standing in a line or something, you know, I talk to them and, I mean, just ask them how their day is going and, you know, what's going on in their life and stuff like that. I think I'm a very social guy, so, you know, that just kind of comes naturally, I guess.
What's one big thing you want to see turned around from last year when maybe you didn't win as many games as you have in the past?
I think from last year we had such a young crew that it's every coach talks about it. It's the little things, the details that make a big difference in whether you are successful or not. So hoping that our boys commit to being serious about those details and the little things in our game. And, we had a group of sophomores last year that are going to have more experience. So I think they'll be a little more comfortable and hopefully more successful this year.
Well, maybe it's an oversimplification, but it seems like in the NHL, they always talk about the speed teams. They talk about the tough teams, the enforcers. What kind of team do you think you have right now?
I think we got kind of a combination, actually. There's a few guys that like to play that tough game, and maybe that's how they generate their success, is they're finishing their checks. They're playing really kind of hard on pucks and hard-nosed hockey. And then we do have some guys that can wheel and have a lot of skill. So, I guess it's kind of a combo. I'd like to be a team that plays fast and, does take a chance or two, as long as we can come back and play solid defense. So, I would like to be a risky team that kind of has a calculated risk so we can really see what we can do.
More with Steve Bolio. We got some tougher questions for him after this break on South Suburban Spotlight.
5 seconds on the man advantage. One-touch pass by Thomas, left dot, score!
1 second left on the penalty.
Erlov! From right to left, Malmquist rings the pipe. Follow-up try, in and out of the glove of Hayden. And it goes off to the half wall for Malmquist. Against a screen, off the end boards, centered, loose, scramble, and the net dislodged, no goal. Wow. Clears it down. Oh, they caught Burnsville in a change. Here's Boltman all alone. Boltman saved by Hayden.
Final segment, South Suburban Spotlight. Steve Bolio, the guest. I'm Sam Ekstrom. I got a few more for you. Let's call it the superlative segment. I'm going to give you a lot of options here. I want you to give me the best hockey movie.
Slapshot.
Best jerseys in the NHL.
Current.
Or retro. Give me a retro. You got it.
You'd have to go North Stars, but just as a kid growing up. But other jerseys that I like are the Maple Leafs. I just like the 2-color scheme. I think that's a really classic look.
Best hockey hair of all the Burnsville players that you've coached.
Ooh.
You had that big state tournament run where they really got flowing.
That's really a tough call. There's so many that you could throw in the mix. Braden Engham's afro is pretty solid, in my opinion. And,
we'll get some video of that.
Obviously Sandvig with, I don't know if he blew that out with a blow dryer or not, but it's crazy. There's a long list. I could keep going on and on. But current team, I'd say Kittleson's got he's got some potential. Best venue you play in besides Gary R. Harker, which, of course, as we know, is the best in the state. Clearly the best. I don't know why. I like Aldrich Arena. I think it's kind of has a historic factor to it that I like. So I guess I'd have to go Aldrich. Thanks so much for your time. Can't wait to call your games this season. You bet. Big thanks to Steve, Rob Mestas, Sam Bardwell, the whole crew who helped on this version of the show. I'm Sam Ekstrom. Talk to you next time